الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters. I'm very happy to be in Newly Masjid another time to be talking and discussing with the brothers and sisters on this really important topic. Now, for any society, for any culture to work, to grow, to be established, for the ummah itself to be established, it has to be built upon strong roots. Now the ummah will never grow, will never be established unless it has a strong community. And the community is based upon strong families, and these families are based upon strong family units. And the family unit, the only way for the family unit to be established is through when children know who their fathers are, when children know who their mothers are, when the blood ties are established, when lineages are established. And this is not to do with any kind of ta'assub or any kind of clinging to any kind of group or clan or any kind of arrogance or pride. This is so everybody knows who their roots are, who they came from, and to establish a strong family unit. Islam, the ummah, is built upon a group of family units. And in order for that to happen, people need to know that where their roots are from. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, وَلَقَدَ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ, that indeed we have created mankind in the best of molds and the best of forms. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created every single individual in the most perfect of fashion. And it's when that fashion, when that nature of a person becomes corrupted, then what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has established has become deviated from. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created human beings with certain needs and certain desires. And those desires are found. Those desires have been created within us for a reason, but it's when those desires become transgressed, or when those desires go beyond their limits, when things start to break down. And when those desires are maintained, and when those desires are used in the proper manner, then the family unit is made strong. And when the family unit is strong, then the communities are strong. And when the communities are strong, the ummah becomes strong. Now, we live in a time where these structures have broken down. These structures are no longer important in the eyes of the society that we live in. And it's, the problems that we see are very obvious within society. Children don't know where they come from. Children feel abandoned because they don't know who their mothers are, they don't know who their fathers are, they don't know their brothers or their sisters where they came from. It's a very diluted society. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created these desires inside of us for a reason. For example, if nobody had the desire to eat, nobody would eat. Why? Because eating, what does it require? It requires you to go out, earn halal money, go to the shops, buy the food, come back, prepare the food, so much effort, so much work. If nobody had the desire to have children, nobody would have children. What does it mean? Go out, earn money, find a pious wife, pay the mahar, have the wedding, provide for her, sustain for her, look after her. If that desire for marriage wasn't there, nobody would get married. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created that desire in us to get married. But that desire has to be controlled. Every one of our desires has to be controlled. If it's not controlled, then problems start to happen. And the problems, they grow exponentially and exponentially. Now what we're going to be talking about today is what happens when these desires aren't controlled. And these diseases of the heart, they aren't controlled and they aren't maintained, and they go out of the limits which Allah has prescribed for them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in Arabic, this word shamelessness, you might have heard of it, it's called fawahish. All these deeds, anything which is shameless, anything which the society, when it is sound, when a sound society thinks and understands that this is not what dignified people do, this is considered shameful. This is not something which we do. And the problem is that we now live in a society where what was known to be good is now considered bad, and what was known to be bad has now been considered good. Okay? In the Prophet ﷺ's time, the Sahaba knew what amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar. It was very clear what the ma'ruf was, what the good was, and what the munkar was, what the bad was. So when people deviated from the ma'ruf, they could be brought back. When people did munkar, they could be given advice to. But now we live in a time where the ma'ruf, where what is good has become bad, and what is bad has become good. Everything is flipped around. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, قُلْ تَعَالَوْا أَتْلُوا مَا حَرَّمَ رَبَّكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ come, I will recite to you what Allah has prohibited you from. And then he says, أَلَّا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Now notice that whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he puts a few things in order, notice what comes first and then what comes after. So the first thing Allah commands us to do is, or not to do rather, is do not associate partners with Him. And this is very clear. Don't associate any partners with the one who created you. He is the one who created you. He is the one who has sovereign authority. He is the power. He is the king. What He asks you to do is the best thing for you. If you don't do what He asks you to do or what He commands you to do, you are going to be ruining yourself. ظَلَمْتُ نَفْسِي. You are going to be oppressing yourself when you don't do what Allah has commanded you to do. Then He says, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. He says, do not associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And do excellent with your parents. Now why does He bring those two things together? Because by not associating partners with Him, you maintain the deen. When you honor your parents, you maintain the society and the community. A community which honors their roots, and every offspring honors their roots. This is a sound community, because firstly they know who their roots are, and secondly they're giving them the due honor and respect that they deserve. Then it says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ مِنْ إِمْلَاقٍ. Do not kill your children out of fear of poverty. And then this then talks about the practice at the time where people would bury their daughters alive. Okay, they would bury their daughters alive. Because what would happen is that society, at that time, the Jahili society, they would implement certain laws. They would come up with their own laws and rituals, and they would say, this is what Allah has commanded us to do. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this was revealed actually in Mecca, not Medina. Most often, laws are revealed in Medina, but these laws were revealed in Mecca. This was done to indicate that even without an Islamic state, without a society, these things were so important that they needed to be implemented then. Don't do shirk, honor your parents, and don't bury your daughters. Allah provides for you. He is the one who has authority. He is the sovereign king. He is the Malik. He is the Hakim. He is the Hakim. Don't listen to what anybody else tells you. And then Allah commands goodness to parents and maintaining the family tie and maintaining the family structure. So the whole surah is about religion, then it's about the family unit, then it's about maintaining those family units. Ibn Abbas, he says about this verse that, and then he goes, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الْفَوَاحِشَ مَا ظَهْرَ مِنْهَا وَمَا بَطَنْ. And he says, don't come close to fawahish. What does this word fawahish mean? Who's listening?
Shamelessness.
Shamelessness, not the zina. Zina comes under, we'll talk about that. Fawahish is all acts of indecency. And the scholars say, anything which is considered within decent society, dignified society to be shameful, that is shameful. Zina is one of these things, fornication. And due to the brothers and sisters, and we have some children here, due to the nature of this topic, I will be mentioning one or two things, so just be aware of that, okay? But there is no haya, there is no modesty when it comes to knowledge. So, you know, we need to know these, and especially this is also aimed at our children. They need to know these things as well, because they're going to come to a time when they start to hit puberty, they start to come to that time of cognitive thinking, where they start to think for themselves, and they need to be able to know what do I need to stay away from, and what can I go towards. Because as parents, we can't be with them all the time. We want to raise children that have the faculty of thinking, to know what is right and what is wrong, what is fawahish, what is shamelessness, and what is, honor and nobility and dignity. So Ibn Abbas said concerning this verse, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الْفَوَاحِشِ. Do not come close to fawahish, indecent acts. Notice the use of the word taqrabu. Taqrabu here means don't come close. It doesn't say don't do. It says don't even come close to them. And when you come close to something, you can face it. You're right in front of it. But it's saying don't even approach it. Don't come near it. Because these kind of fawahish, when you're involved in it, understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes, وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Do not follow the footsteps of shaitan. Now what do footsteps do? When you see footsteps in the sand, understand that there's someone at the end of that, and there's a lot of footsteps that you have to follow to get to the individual. So the way shaitan works, understand shaitan is very, very patient. Shaitan is very, very knowledgeable. Shaitan has, from the time Adam alayhi salam was created up until the end of day, shaitan has your whole lifetime to work on you. He's very, very patient. Shaitan will never come up to you and say to you, go and do zina, go and talk to that girl inappropriately, go and watch that thing on the computer, go and download that picture on your phone. He will never do that. What he will do, him and his soldiers, they will introduce things to you very, very slowly over the period of a year, 2 years, 3 years, over the period of a lifetime, over the period of generations and generations and generations. And inshallah, if we get the slides working, I'll show you 1 or 2 things. But understand that society and culture and standards have changed from 100 years ago to the hadden today. And these have all happened step by step, step by step, step by step. Ibn Abbas, this is why Allah goes, don't come close to these things, because they never just start off. First it's just some idle talk. Then it's some music. Then it's more explicit music. Then it's movies. Then it's more explicit movies. Then it's films. Then it's more explicit films. And then all it takes is that one moment of weakness, and someone's whole iman can become lost. And it will never happen slowly. So the point is to cut things off at the root, as close to the roots as reasonably possible. Which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الْفَوَاحِشِ, don't come close to indecent acts. Don't come close to indecent acts. مَا ظَهْرَ مِنْهَا وَمَا بَطَنَ, those indecent acts which are apparent and those which are hidden. Okay? Now, in dignified society, when people do inappropriate things, they will do them in private. You will never hear about them, you will never see them. But unfortunately, in the society we live on, these things are very prevalent. SubhanAllah, you can't drive down the street without seeing something inappropriate. And you're with your children, you're with your wives, and SubhanAllah, I remember one time, I looked to my left, there was a big billboard. Okay, astaghfirullah. Looked to my right, there was a bus going past me. Astaghfirullah. Looked down, there was some newspaper on the floor. I couldn't look anywhere. Okay, the fawahish, is everywhere, and this is the whole point of this: is to throw so much indecent acts upon the minds of the people that they don't seem so bad. They don't seem so bad anymore. When you become accustomed to something, when you see something so often, it doesn't seem so bad. People get used to it. Ibn Abbas said about this verse, he said, we didn't see in Jahiliyyah, this is before they became Muslim, he goes, we didn't see in Jahiliyyah any kind of problem with zina. Do you all know what zina means? Does everybody know? Zina is inappropriate relations outside of marriage. Is relations with a man or a woman outside of marriage. Is with any problem, with any zina in secret. He goes, we didn't have any problem if people did zina in secret. We had no problem with that. That was normal part of society. But we found it ugly. We found it ugly. It wasn't nice. It wasn't liked if it was done openly. So we take from this, number one, even at their time, it was done openly, but even then it wasn't stopped. We didn't like it. It wasn't considered good. But then when this verse came, Allah forbade it in secret and in public. Okay? But now it's come to a time where to do things openly, there's not even a problem with that. It's become very, very normal. Now, brothers, understand that we are in a battle with certain people, certain mindsets, certain mentalities and ideologies who want us to think in a certain way, who want us to dress in a certain way, who want us to take certain ideals and norms as standard. And whoever controls the desires of the people, controls the people. We as human beings, we have been created with desires, and I mentioned before, these desires are there for a reason. We have the desire to have children. We have the desire to marry, to be, to be with women or to be with men. But the reason is so we can have children and raise them as good Muslims. And we have the desire to eat. We have the desire to sleep. We have all of these desires, and these desires are necessary for us to function in society. But whoever controls these desires controls the people, because then these people, they have no limits. They have no limits on what is appropriate and where I should stop. And this is called israf, where you exceed the limits. And there are these people, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah An-Nur, He says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُحِبُّونَ, there are those that love. Understand that there are people out there, the powers that be, that they love, أَن تَشِيعَ الْفَاحِشَةُ فِي الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, that they love to see scandal, to see these indecent acts being broadcast among the believers. لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. And Allah knows, and you don't know. There are those people, on the surface, they may think that they're working for your benefit. But their goal, and they are so happy when they see you following them. when they see you doing what they do, when they see you trying what they do, when they see you listening to what they do, when they see you eating what they do, when they see you wearing what they do and watching what they do, they are secretly very, very happy. Because they want you to do what they do. For a number of reasons. But they want you to do what they do. And slowly they are pushing this fawahish onto the minds of our children, onto the minds of our youth, changing their mentality, changing their thinking. Things which were so bad once upon a time, they're not so bad anymore. They're acceptable, they're normal, they're okay. And these things happen over time. Surah Nur was revealed in Medina when the Prophet had strength and power, and the Muslims had strength, power and state. And now you have an active community. So this surah was revealed to teach people the adab to deal between each other. So it talked about the individual and society. It talked about not entering into people's houses without permission. It talked about keeping the family unit strong by protecting each other from these kind of fawahish, by stopping zina. You know, in the Arabic language, there isn't a word for adultery. Adultery is when a married man or a married woman has relations other than with their wife and husband. It's considered such a dirty act that you can do, there's not even a word for it, because you're married. How could you possibly even think about doing something like that? Zina there is a word for. Maybe someone young, they're young, they're not married. It can happen. Of course, it's not. We don't want it to happen, but it can happen. But adultery is such a dirty word. There's not even a word for it. Okay, not even a word for it. So then, there's no Surah Nur was revealed because it wanted to make the family unit strong. It wanted to teach people how to prevent themselves. It taught people how to prevent zina from happening. It taught people how to protect your faraj, how to protect your desires, how to protect your dignity. It taught you not to mix freely with the opposite gender. And it talked about building a strong house. We talk about Darul Islam, Darul Halb, all these things. Understand that your home is your Darul Islam. And the husband is you can say he's the Amir of that. You build your house upon Darul Islam. You protect your children from what they watch and what they listen to. Protect your children from these concepts and ideas entering into their house. Because understand, it is a battle. And some of the things I'm going to tell you later on are going to shock you. That we spend maybe 4, 5, 6 hours a day with our children in the evening. But at school, they're there 7, 8 hours a day, every day, 5 days a week. And the thoughts which they're subjected to on a constant daily basis, we're in a battle. And we have to really work hard, really strive hard to ensure that our children don't get to a point where something which we think is so abhorrent becomes very, very easy for them to do. Umar ibn al-Khattab, he says, "Alimu nisa'akum Surah Nur." This is a hadith which is attributed to Umar. It's also attributed to the Prophet ﷺ on a weak chain of narration. He goes, teach your women Surah Nur. Because it teaches women how to protect their privacy, and it teaches the husbands how to protect their honor and their privacy as well. And so then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he goes, and tashi'ul fahisha. So let's just look at a little bit more about what this word fahisha is. Okay, fahisha is the plural of the word fawahish. Fahisha is the plural of the word fawahish. Fahisha comes the root verb fahasha. Fahasha means when you go beyond the proper limits of something. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set certain limits. Fahasha means to go beyond those limits. Okay, to transgress it. But to transgress it in such a manner that it's so ugly, it's so dirty, it's so evil that it causes problems for you and problems for everybody else. And fahish, in Arabic we have similar words. Do you all remember the person who killed Hamza? What was his name? Wahshi. Wahshi comes from the word wahish. Wahish means someone who's wild. Fahish means to go exceed the limits. So can you see fahish and wahish, they sound very similar. When someone does fahish or fahsha, it's almost like they become wild. They've lost all control, they've lost all limits, they've become wild. In Urdu we have this word jungli. You know this word? Okay, they've become wild. Okay, they've lost control of themselves. Okay? So fawahish, this is the plural, and it's referred to in indecency where you exceed the limits of certain things. And then fahusha means to become excessive, to become enormous. When you exceed something so much that it's become huge. Right? So it's a very, very big thing. In Lisan al-Arab, Ibn al-Manzur, a great scholar of the Arabic language, he goes, fuhshun al-qabih min qawl wal-fi'l. That fuhsh, indecency, is in the speech and it's in the actions. So your speech can become indecent and your actions can become indecent as well. Zamakhshari, who was also an Arabic linguist, a linguist of the Arabic language who was Persian, he wasn't Arab, but he wrote a big tafsir called Al-Kashaf, and is considered the pinnacle, the benchmark in linguistical tafsir of the Quran. He was known as Jarullah, the neighbour of Allah, because he would sit in Mecca, he would sit by the Kaaba all day, all night doing tafsir, just sitting by the wall of the Kaaba doing tafsir of the Quran. And incidentally, Zamakhshari, he caught frostbite because he wasn't very rich and he didn't have proper clothes, so he caught frostbite and he had to have his foot cut off. So whenever he went anywhere, he had to have a sign around his neck saying, "I'm not a thief, I caught frostbite and I had to have my foot cut off." Because he was a scholar, people think he's a thief. So he had to clarify that with the people. But important, he wasn't Arab. Okay, he was an expert in Arabic language. He wasn't Arab, and he says that the word fahisha means excessive ugliness outside of the normal extent of ugliness. Okay, so you got normal ugliness, which is still very bad, but this is excessive, even worse. So zina, fornication, looking at bad things, okay, listening to very bad things, doing zina outside of marriage. This is not the normal kind of ugliness. This is the worst possible thing that you can do. Understand, after shirk, zina is the worst thing a Muslim can do, even on top of murder. Murder kills the individual, zina kills the society, it kills the family unit, it kills the bond between children and parents. Imam al-Shafi'i, he goes so far as to say that a child born out of wedlock is not even related to the person that they came from. There's no bloodline there, because the bloodline can only come through marriage. If someone has a child outside of wedlock, they're not even related to you. It's such an ugly, bad thing. It's worse than murder, because it kills society, it causes corruption among society, it breaks down the family unit, and it causes disease and corruption and ugliness in society. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. Don't even come close to zina. All of the things which lead you on towards doing things, talking, and subhanAllah, we live in a day of social media. We live in a time where we're constant. Allahu Akbar. Oh, the Arabic, no problem.
Can I do the slides from here?
Yeah, that's fine. We live in a time of social media where subhanAllah, everybody's whole life is on display. And it's amazing that people, you know, they won't allow someone to their wedding, but they're more than happy to post the pictures online. I'm quite confused about that. But, you know, people will post, you know, very kind of personal images of themselves, and they will share things which they're doing in their personal life on a constant basis. And there's no privacy. Everybody knows what everybody's up to. And subhanAllah, okay, social media is there, it can be used, but unfortunately it's also misused and it's abused. And these are one of the things. Understand that zina will not happen all at once. First things, these things, they start off with a glance, then they start off with a look, then they start off with a talk, then a text, then you know, an email conversation, then more conversation, more conversing, more talking, more interacting. Then it starts off with meeting, then it starts off with meeting in public, then it starts off with meeting in private, until something which you thought never would happen happens. And subhanAllah, the first time zina happens is always the most difficult. Once that barrier has gone, then it's easier after that. So we have to protect ourselves from the very beginning. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives very, لا تقربوا, لا تقربوا zina. Don't come close to it. Stay away from it. Teach your children to stay away from these things. And what do we mean by these things? We mean by, like I said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says to us, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah." Guide, invite those people, invite all to the way of good. Okay? When we interact with people, we're inviting them to good. Understand, when other people interact with us, they're doing the same thing, but they're inviting us to shar. They're inviting us to evil. Everything that we listen to, everything that, well, not everything, okay? Most things that are in popular culture, music, movies, magazines. It's all written and has been designed with an intention in mind, and that is to change the minds of the people. That is to introduce certain ideas and certain concepts to you. And these things will happen over years and years and years and years and years. And you'll see now, any movie now, watch the interaction between the parents and the children. It will shock you that this is the way that they want you to understand. This is the way we should deal with our parents. The interaction between young children, young boys and young girls, these are done over time to allow people to think that this is normal behavior, this is acceptable behavior. So don't think that there are certain programs, even cartoons, they're there to teach you certain things, teach your children certain things that when they grow up, people will think in a certain way, in a certain manner. Okay? وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. Don't come close to zina. It's a fahish, it's an ugly thing, and it's the worst of path. What is a path? A path is something which has steps. Once you're on that path, you start off at the bottom, then you step one step further, one step further, one step higher, until you get to that thing. And each step that you're on, even though it's something minor, you're sinning. And as you get higher up the staircase, you sin more, until you do the most worst of actions. Okay? It always starts from the beginning. Now in this verse, Muhyiddin al-Darwish, he's a scholar of the Arabic language, he says that the word here should be وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. It should be zina. It should be an alif and then a hamza. Now who here studied the tajweed? Does Neely Moss do tajweed courses?
You have to.
MashaAllah, excellent. Okay, so right. You have something called a mad. A mad is when you extend the normal vowel. So we have fatha, damma, kasra. You might know it as zabar, zer, pesh, but you should know it as zabar, zer, pesh. Okay, you have fatha, damma, and kasra, a, e, and u. When you add an alif or a ya or a waw, it becomes a, e, u. It becomes too long. Okay, that's called a mad. Now you have something called a hamza. When you add a hamza after a mad, it makes the word sound longer. This is called mad muttasil. Mad muttasil is where the hamza is part of the word. Now you can extend the word up to 4 or 5 harakat long. So this should be zina. It should be much longer. It should be 4 or 5 harakat long. But it's actually zina. The hamza has been dropped. The word's been abbreviated. Why? Why is the word being abbreviated? When your father or your mother is upset with you, what will they say to you? They'll say to you, what will they say to you? They'll say to you, Asif, sit down now. Okay? Very short, very sharp speech. They'll say to you, do this right now. Yeah? Okay. But when your father is happy with you, when your mother is happy with you, they'll say, yeah, Asif, take all the time you want to, relax. Take your time. Okay? What happens? The speech becomes elongated. It becomes longer. The length, the mad, indicates perhaps a relaxedness. Indicates that there's not an immediate requirement to do something. But the word has become shorter. That mad muttasil isn't there anymore. It's just normal mad. It's jumped from 5 to 2. Why? Because Allah is saying, "La taqrabu zina." He's making it very short, very sharp. Don't come close to it. Don't do it at all. This is a linguistical miracle. Very, very beautiful feature. The shortness of it to make it sound, don't come close to it at all. وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. And it is the worst of paths, the path that you can be on. Also, I'll mention one. Also, with zina, okay, with fornication, these things are done secretly, they're done privately, they're done quickly. Okay? They're not dignified acts. Allah's zina, quick. This is not something dignified. This is represented in the sound of the word. Don't even come close to it. It's such an ugly thing. And the pleasure which might be gained from it is so short that the regret after is much, much longer. Okay? The sin and the regret afterwards is much, much longer. Someone posted this on Facebook. They said that sin is like a credit card. You enjoy it for now, but you pay for it later. Okay? Okay. And this word fawahish is only mentioned 4 times in the Quran. Because whenever the word fawahish is mentioned, it encompasses all types of indecent acts. Looking, watching, seeing, talking. Brothers and sisters, zina is not just of the body. Okay? Zina is of the eyes, zina is of the tongue, zina is of the listening. Okay, let me repeat that again, and they are all haram. Zina of the eye is to look at something which you shouldn't be looking at. Zina of the tongue is to be talking to someone when you shouldn't be talking to them. And zina of the ear, when you're listening to something that you shouldn't be listening to. These are all haram. Okay? They may not, of course, be at the same degree as zina of the body, but they are they are of a sin and they are haram. Keep that in mind. Don't belittle them. And they are part of that path. لا تقربوا. Okay? The scholars said that anything which is good and leads to good has reward. But anything which is evil and leads towards evil is haram in and of itself. So we really have to be very cautious. It's the small things which lead to the big things. Okay. Now there's just a few statistics that I wanted to kind of share with you, but just before I do that, now, how do we combat this? How do we combat this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He asks you not to do something, but He also gives you the way. He tells you the cure to prevent yourself from doing this. And again in Surah Nur, and in Surah Nur, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ ذَلِكَ أَذْكَى لَهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا يَصْنَعُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He goes, say to the believing men, and later on He says to the believing women يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ, that they should lower their gaze. Now this is a remedy for all of your problems. Lower your gaze. What does this mean? يَغُضُّ مِنْ غَضَّ. يَغُضُّ means to not look at something, to protect your glance from something which can essentially lead towards further things. وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ. And He mentions these two: lowering your gaze and protecting your faraj, your modesty, protecting your modesty and your private parts. ذَلِكَ أَزْكَى. Now the word azka is called ismul tafdeel. It's the most pure thing that you can do. It's the purest thing that you can do. And inna Allah khabirun bima yasna'un. And Allah is well aware of what you do. Don't think, okay, I'm sitting in the classroom, I'm sitting at work, that little glance at the corner of my eye, nobody saw me, nobody knew what I was doing. Allah knows. Okay? He's well aware of what you do. Allah knows when you're talking to someone and it's for work, and when you're talking for someone out of enjoyment, because of desire, you're enjoying speaking with them. Okay? No one's saying you can't be nice, you can't be pleasant. We live in society, we need to be dignified people. But Allah knows when you're transgressing that limit. Allah knows when you're taking that look that you shouldn't be looking. Allah knows when you're watching something in the depth of the night, when no one's... Subhanallah, now we've all got phones. You don't even need a computer. It's so easy for someone to look at something, to hear something, to watch something in private. Nobody knows. Okay? But Allah knows. Wherever you are, He knows. And He ends that, Inna Allah khabirun. He is well aware. He is well informed. Nothing escapes Him of what you do. And He tells you to lower your gaze. Now, I was at work, and I was, one of my colleagues was just, subhanallah, and it was quite saddening. One of my colleagues was, telling me about him, and, he had him and his, partner, they use this term partner, whatever that means. And he goes, oh yeah, we live next door to this rugby player, and he has a wife, and my partner looks at the husband, and then so I look at his wife, and he goes, there's nothing wrong with looking, is there? There's nothing wrong with looking. And I was like, what an ugly situation to be in. There's no decency, no modesty. You're in a relationship, and there's no privacy. There's no honor between you both. But then straight away they try to justify it and say, okay, but there's nothing wrong with looking. People know inside that there's a problem with this. It causes problems. Everything starts with a glance. The glance is the first problem which causes everything. And Al-Alusi in this tafsir is called Ruh al-Ma'ani. He quotes a very nice poem about the glance. Okay, the glance is where the first problem starts. He says, He says, كل الحوادث مبداها من نظر ومعظم النار من مستصغر الشرر والمرء ما دام ذا عين يقلبها في أعين العين في أعين العين موقوف على الخطر كم نظرة فعلت في قلب فاعلها فعل السهام بلا قوس ولا وتر يسر ناذره ما ضر خاطره لا مرحبا بسرور عاد بالضرر. Okay, so he goes كل الحوادث مبداها بالنظر. Every accident, every mishap starts with a glance. Every problem you'll see, it starts with a glance. Okay? You can't commit a sin without seeing what you're going to sin for first. It's impossible to do a sin, or in fact it's very difficult if you don't look at it first. You can't steal unless you see what you're stealing. You can't commit zina unless you see first. You can't lie unless you have seen what you want to lie about. Okay? Everything comes from the glance first. وَمُعْظَمُ النَّارِ مِن مُسْتَصْغِرِ الشَّرِّ. And he goes that most fires are started from the most insignificant sparks. Okay? A spark, a small spark, which most people think, oh, that's so small, it's not going to do anything. Fires, big fires start from that. Okay? In 2010, 610 deaths were caused from cigarette fires. 610 people died from one cigarette, which they thought, that's not going to cause anything, leave it there to burn away. They died from that. 600 people. Okay? وَالْمَرْءُ مَا دَامَ ذَا عَيْنٍ يُقَلِّبُهَا. And a person, when he keeps, when his eye continually looks at something, فِي أَعْيُنِ الْعَيْنِ مَوْقُوفٌ عَلَى الْخَطَرِ. And this eye, when it rests upon something which he's looking at, al-khatar, it becomes a danger, it's a problem. When his eye keeps returning and it rests upon something, that's when it causes a problem. كَمْ نَظْرَةً فَعَلَتْ فِي قَلْبِ فَاعِلِهَا. How many a glance has caused the heart of the doer to change? How many a glance has caused the heart of the doer to change? فِعْلُ السِّهَامِ بِلَا قَوْسٍ وَلَا وَتَرٍ. That this action is like an arrow without a bow or without a string. That the look, when you look at something inappropriately, it's like an arrow going to that individual without a bow or without a string. It's fired from the eyes of the person. يَسُرَ نَاظِرُهُ مَا ضَرَّ خَاطِرُهُ. And the looking has become easy. When you keep on doing it, looking becomes very, very easy for you. مَا ضَرَّ خَاطِرُهُ. Until the desire starts to harm. That you start to look, you repeatedly look, desire comes, and then it starts to harm you. لا مرحبا بسرور. This look is not welcome. عاد بالضرر. When it starts to bring problems to you. This look, when it starts to cause problems, is not welcome. لا مرحبا. Okay? So just think, keep this in mind, that a look is where it starts. If you can control your gaze, you can control everything. But unfortunately, once upon a time, it was just about controlling our gaze. Now, it's not even about the gaze we have to control. It's about what we listen to as well. It's about what we listen to and what we hear about as well. Now, this action of lowering the gaze, you'll notice that many a thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, don't do zina. He goes, don't do shirk. He says, don't steal, don't rob, don't do murder. There are punishments associated with that in this world. But lowering of the gaze, there's no punishment associated with that in this world. Why? Because this is something which is done for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? And you will get your reward in the next life. Although, the scholars say that if you want to taste the sweetness of Iman, true Iman, lower your gaze. When you see something, lower your gaze because you're doing it for Him. You're doing it for Him. Nobody else knows. There are certain things you do where nobody else will ever know that you're doing it. One of them is fasting. I could be looking at this brother, or I could be looking at someone, and you may be fasting. I don't know that you're fasting. There's nothing apparent. Someone's praying. You can see that they're praying. They're doing Quran. You can see that they're doing Quran. They're giving zakah. You can see them putting the money in, but nobody can see if you're fasting or not. Okay? It's the same with this. Nobody knows whether you're looking or not, but Allah knows, and you do it for His sake. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He goes, وَالَّذِينَ لِزَكَاتِهِمْ فَاعِلُونَ. And those who give zakah, وَالَّذِينَ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ. Those who protect their faraj. Now, why does Allah link zakah with protecting your faraj? Why does He do that? Firstly, they say that, what do they say? That you know, when you do the action, it's not just by lip service. Okay? What's the phrase they use? The actions in the doing of the action. Anyone know best?
Umar?
Huh?
Umar will know.
Alright. Basically, you know, anybody can talk. The action is
Action speaks louder than words.
Perhaps that's the one. Okay. Actions speak louder than words. Anybody can talk. Okay. So anybody can talk about giving money, giving sadaqah, giving charity, but the proof's in the pudding. Okay. The proof's in the pudding. Actually, giving the charity is the actual action. Anybody can talk about it all day. Okay. But what is zakah? Zakah is purification of your mal. Zakah is purification of your mal, and that's linked with protecting your faraj because that's purification of your body. Purifying your body is protecting your faraj, protecting your honor, protecting your manhood. Okay? Purification of your money is by giving zakah. And when you do this, you raise your iman. Okay? Because the iman and man are linked together because it's purity of the body and it's purity of your nasab, of your lineage. Now, I'm just going to show you a few slides to kind of indicate what kind of things you're up against. Alright? Can you change the slide, please? Right. I don't know if you can see that. Is it?
Shall I read it?
Yeah, okay. Now, the Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith, he said in a famous hadith, that إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاسْنَا مَعْ شِئْتَ. Okay, this is narrated in Bukhari. If you do not have any modesty, then do whatever you wish. Very powerful statement. If you don't have any modesty, haya, do whatever you wish. What's the word for modesty?
Haya.
What's the word for modesty? Everyone.
Haya.
Hayat. What's the word for life? Hayat. Okay, we have brother Hayat at the back. Okay, this is life with a ta marbuta. Then we have the word hayat, which is modesty. The word hayat comes from the word hayat, because modesty is part of your life. If you don't have modesty, essentially you're dead. You're a slave to your desire. You're dead towards your desires. Okay, now there are people out there. This someone is called Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley, he died in the 1940s. He was an occultist, a Satanist, one of these, you know, I don't want to get into all these conspiracy theories, one of these Freemason, you know, Satan, whatever you want to call them. They had their own satanic Bible. They'd push people towards, you know, serving their own desires, serving, you know, they used to like these numbers. The satanic number was 11 because it meant one by one. There's God and there's Shaitan, and we worship Shaitan. And one of the quotes from the Bible was, "Do what thou," what does it say?
Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. But Prophet ﷺ goes, if you have no shame, do whatever you will. If you have shame, then don't do certain things. These people, they teach the opposite. Do whatever you will. This is the whole of the law. But there is no law. There is no right and wrong. There is no good or bad. Okay? Next slide, please. Madonna. Okay, you've all heard of Madonna. She's been pushing certain ideals for a very long time. She said in one of her songs that I'm bored with this concept of right and wrong. There is no right, there is no wrong. Whatever your desires want, just do that. Okay? Just do that. Follow your desires. And these are the people who control their desires. They control you, they tell you what is good, what is bad, what people should do, what people shouldn't do. Okay? And in one of her songs, what did she say? She goes, everybody comes to Hollywood. That's their, you know, that's where people they do pilgrimage there. All these people who are, you know, subservient to their desires. They want to make it in Hollywood. They like the smell of Hollywood. How could it hurt you when it looks so good? Okay, when something looks good, when it feels good, when it sounds good, it must be something good. It must be something good for you. Isa alayhi salam, he says that Isa, and this was related in the tafsir of Shaykh Ratib al-Nabulsi, a Syrian scholar. He goes, ليس الشريف الذي يهرب من الخطيئة. He goes that the noble person is not the one who flees from the sin, but the noble person is the one who flees from the asbab, the causes to the sin. Okay? لا تقربوا الزنا. Don't even come close to the sin. But these people forget about the causes. They want you to come close to the sin itself. And there's no sin. There's no right or wrong. Okay? Next slide, please. Right. Now, I don't want to get into all these, again, conspiracy, Freemasons, all this kind of stuff, but understand that there are powers and forces out there that want you to think and feel and understand and comprehend things in a certain way. It's been happening since very hundreds of years. Okay. And you have all these things, all these symbols covering up the one eye, all these kind of, these are all kind of satanic symbols. People want you to become used to them, so when you see them, they become very normal to you. And what do you all see? All these famous pop stars, all very good looking, very rich, living really wonderful lives. People associate that with, right, well, they're so nice looking, what they say must be true. They're so rich, what they're doing must be good. So let's listen to what they say, let's see what they do, and let's try to copy them. Let's do what they do. Okay, this is a quote in the middle from someone called Christina Aguilera, singer. She goes, "The devil is in my soul, so my heart became a grave. The flame just burned without control. I am the master and I am the slave." These are not just lyrics. These are what they want impressionable young people to be listening to all the time. All the time. I am the master, I am the slave. I do whatever I want to do. There's no Allah, there's no God, there's no nothing. Okay? And here we have someone, I think that's someone called Neo. He's a singer. He goes, "I wish my thoughts could be inside your head. Whatever I'm thinking, whatever I believe, whatever I want you to be believing the same thing." Yeah, that's much better. Now, in the story of Adam and Eve, alayhi salam, Shaitan, when you read the whole story in Surah Al-Anfal and Araf and other places, Baqarah, Shaitan didn't just go up to Adam, here's, guys, there's an apple, go have a bite. He didn't do it like that. He went back and forward, convincing them, Inni lakum nasih, I'm a very trustworthy person to you. I'm giving you good advice here. Go eat the apple. Back and forward, telling the same thing over and over again. And Allah relates this story here. He goes, Ya Bani Adam. Interesting. He doesn't say, Ya ayyuhal mu'minun. He doesn't say, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu. He doesn't address the believers. He goes, Ya Bani. Who's Bani Adam? Everyone. Not just Muslims, non-Muslims. These are certain things which benefit all of mankind, whether you're Muslim or not. Okay? Ya Bani, O children of Adam, La yaftinannakum ash-shaytan. He goes, do not let Shaitan seduce you, bring you towards his way. Kama akhraja abawaykum min al-jannah, as he took your parents out of Jannah. Yanzi'u anhuma libasahuma, stripping them of their clothes, making them notice their nakedness. When did this happen? Thousands of years ago. What did Shaitan do? He wanted them to see their nakedness. He wanted to strip them of their clothes. Same thing's happening now. Okay? People call it liberalism. Shaitan's doing the same thing. He wants people to take off their clothes. He wants their aura to be exposed. Because what happens, and you'll see this next one, لِيُرِيَهُمَا سُوءَاتِهِمَا, so that they might expose their shame. And this word, سُوءَاتِهِمَا, the word aura is the normal word for your shame, what you want to cover. But the word here is سُوءَاتِهِمَا. Sawat comes from the same word as sa'a yasu, which means to do something evil. Why does this word? Because when your aura is exposed and people look at it, they are inclined to do bad things. This is the natural nature of the individual. But when your nature becomes corrupted, the first thing you want to do is start to think evil things, look at evil things, do evil things. This word is used instead of the word aura, the word sawat, because they're exposed. And then what happened? As soon as they realized, they started to cover themselves with the leaves of Jannah. Tafaqan. This means to cover layer upon layer, to cover their shame. They became so embarrassed about themselves. And some of the scholars, Qurtubi says, that even in Jannah, Adam and Hawa alayhima as-salam, their private parts weren't shown. It was covered with light. Even then, they were covered. They couldn't see each other's private parts. Modesty, al-haya, it's such a big thing. And Shaitan wanted to strip them of that. And he's still trying to do it today. And he wants to strip our children of this concept of haya. That there's no haya. Speak however you want. Eat what you want. Drink what you want. Behave however you want to. Okay. Next slide, please. Right. Now look at this picture. Believe it or not, that was a picture in the early 19th century of where? California. That was a beach in California. Okay? SubhanAllah, I want to do a comparison, but you can't show that kind of picture in the mosque anywhere. You can't do a comparison. This was only less than 100 years ago. Women, normal women, would dress modestly. But what happens is over time, step by step, shaitan has rid them of their modesty. And what has become normal now? What was normal then? People think that they were oppressed, and they call them oppressed. And here's a poem. In olden days, a glimpse of stocking was looked on as something shocking. But now God knows anything goes. Okay, now God, anything goes. There's no difference. Okay, there's no difference at all. That's the next slide, please. Right. Now, brothers and sisters, there's something I want to speak to you about. And probably everyone at some point has watched a Disney film. Understand this. Every film out there is designed to make you think and act and understand in a certain way. I'm going to introduce to you a few concepts. I'm not saying stop watching them, don't stop watching them. I'm just saying be aware. Not everything is as nice and fluffy and as cute as things are made out to be. Okay? Alright. The first thing is, I'd like to challenge you with a few things. Name a single Disney film where the parents weren't killed off in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Can you name me one? Name me one. I'm not trying to test you, astaghfirullah, you're watching Disney. I'm not trying to say that. Name me a single film.
Frozen.
Huh?
Frozen.
Yeah, well, I mean, are the parents after the first 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Where?
What?
Alright. Maybe one film, okay? But generally, most films, within the first 10 minutes, there are either no parents or that they die. What a lot of people say that they're trying to show children you don't need your parents. You don't need a family unit. You can do just as fine by yourself. Make your own decisions, okay? Here's a film called Pocahontas. And there are certain things which are portrayed, but firstly they're completely inaccurate. The first thing which happens is that it's a film about, I think, settlers coming to a city, and at the end what happens is all the settlers, they become friends with the Native American Indians, or whoever they are living there. But what happened in real life, they didn't become friends at the end. The natives there were enslaved, were humiliated, were put into servitude, were killed on massive thousands. This is a complete historical inaccuracy designed to change the way people think about what really happened at a certain time. Number two, I can't see the last one. What does it say? Yeah, every film. For example, every single film, you'll see that the leading character is very, very, very thin. Very thin, very fair, very beautiful. Now, images have inspired anorexia, eating disorders in young women. Women are designed now, they're starting to think that we have to look a certain way. Young children, this is what they see. And they think that look, I enjoy this film so much, she's the heroine, if I don't look like that by the time there's something wrong, okay? It's a new standard that films are trying to portray. Number two, again, ugliness is immoral. And you'll always find that the villains are ugly, dark, anything which is ugly, anything which doesn't talk like us, look like us, dress like us, there's something wrong with that, there's something evil associated with that. Number two, there's a film called Dumbo, okay? What happens is racial stereotypes. And again, you'll see in a lot of films, the evil villains are always dark-skinned, very dark, it's never white, never fair, generally always very dark. So these are, again, racial stereotypes. Things which aren't fair, which aren't white, don't look like us, there's something evil from them, there's something wrong from them. Now you might be thinking, oh yeah, this is a bit over the top. But understand this, children see these things day in, day out. Hearing what these singers say, watching what these singers do, okay? They are being influenced on a subliminal level, on an obvious level and a subliminal level. And if we don't combat these things, then their sabil isn't going to be the sabil of the Quran and the way of the Sunnah. Their sabil is going to be the way of these people, because their desires, your desires are very strong, and you have to control them from day one. Otherwise, if you don't, they control you. And it's so easy. How many, subhanAllah, I was at a takeaway with my friend yesterday, and he was telling me, why did I order so much food? I only needed to eat half of it, but it's that desire, it just comes and it's that impulse. Okay, I'll have another kebab. It's just such a quick impulse and it's done. And that's a very small thing, but all it takes is that little barrier and that impulse, and you just, mashallah, everybody knows, when it comes to food, everybody knows what I'm talking about, okay? It's that desire. The Prophet very clearly goes, the worst of vessels that the son of Adam can fill is his stomach. But if he has to fill it, a third food, a third water. We know this hadith. Everybody knows this hadith. Okay, but nobody follows it because Ramadan comes, barakah, just keep eating. Okay, so I'm just as guilty as you are, but the thing is, what I'm trying to get across to you is that desire. All it takes is that impulse and the desire, and that's it. The problem is that the situation is lost. The situation is lost. Now I just want to finish on this last. Okay, I just want to finish on a few statistics just to bring things home, and we will stop there. But just remember this hadith, okay? The Prophet ﷺ, he said that if you do not have any modesty, he goes, إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاسْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. If you don't have modesty, do as you will. Inculcate a philosophy of modesty in your children, in yourselves. And don't confuse modesty with khajal, haya. Okay? Modesty, there was a brother here, he misunderstood this concept. He thought modesty meant to be shy, so he trained himself to be so shy he wouldn't even go into a supermarket. If there's too many people, I'm too shy to go into there. Okay? This is not what it means. The wives of the Prophet ﷺ, they weren't shy people. Okay? They were strong people. Haya means to be shy to do something which Allah would not like. That's what haya means. It doesn't mean to be all bashful. It means to be shy to do something haram, to do something which Allah would not like. That's what haya means, okay? Allah is ever watching me. Allah would not like me to listen to this, for me to watch that, okay? Don't do it. There's some statistics I want to share with you, and then I will finish there. Okay. Close to 1 in 3 of 16 to 18-year-olds say that they have seen pictures of a graphic nature on their mobile phones at school a few times a month. Okay? Between the ages of 16 to 18, 1 to 3, 30% of teenagers at school on their phones have seen pictures of a graphic nature at least a few times a month. Okay? Now, may Allah protect our children, but understand our children, their friends, they aren't surrounded by friends who are like themselves. They are surrounded by people who aren't of their culture, of their society, who have their own moral codes and ethics. So we have to get this idea into them that what they do is not correct. And it's a battle, it's a big battle. Number 2, nearly 1 in 4 16 to 18-year-olds say that their teachers have never ever said, their teachers have never told them that touching of an inappropriate nature between students, sharing of inappropriate pictures, or name callings of inappropriate terms is unacceptable. Their own teachers have never told them to stop or said that this is wrong if students do it between themselves. Okay? If students do it between themselves. When I was doing my teaching qualification, I'd have to do that with other teachers. And you do that with RE teachers. Don't think because teachers who are teaching RE that they are religious themselves. It's a job to them. They don't even believe what they're teaching. Their own moral codes and moral standards. Honestly, I was about to get into big arguments with them. They were saying, what if a student comes up to you and asking you what's the difference between Islam and Judaism and Christianity? RE teacher goes, just tell them it's all the same. This is what they teach. It's all the same. It's a job for them. Don't think that they are morally sound themselves. It's a job for them. And this is the teachers themselves. And when your students go, they will look up to their teachers. SubhanAllah, when I was young, I thought my teachers knew everything. You have that, they know everything. You respect them so much. You take so much from them. But then the teachers coming in, they're talking about their boyfriends and girlfriends and what films they watch, the music they watched. They see the clothes they wear, the way they behave. They take from these. These are their role models. And if we don't provide them with better role models, this is why, SubhanAllah, I will never refuse not to come to Nili Masjid. Because SubhanAllah, so many activities, this is what we need to encourage the kids. Even if the kids are messing around at the back, let them mess around. Because the alternatives outside are so much more worse. So much more worse. In 2007, Ofsted, this is the governing body for all schools, commended, there are certain magazines, they're not, you can say, top shelf magazines, they're kind of in between. And they're given a nice name, they're called lads mags, okay? I.e. anybody can buy them, they're called lads mags. But they contain really, explicit content, explicit nature, but they're kind of less than that. Okay? Ofsted said that these magazines offer a very positive source of advice and reassurance for many young people, despite at times reinforcing certain sexist attitudes. Ofsted was endorsing these magazines, telling children you can get good advice from them. You can get good advice from these types of magazines. And these magazines, 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds can buy. Okay, they can buy them. You don't have to show any ID. 1 in 3 girls would consider cosmetic surgery. Okay, the films they watch, the movies they listen to, the cartoons, people are unhappy with themselves. They feel, when someone feels satisfied, when they are strong within themselves, they don't indulge in certain activities. But when they feel the need to, to kind of determine self-determination, that they will do certain things to prove that, when they feel so insecure about themselves. In 2000, I don't even like to use this word, okay? But in 2007, the estimated value of the pornography industry worldwide was $97 billion. Worldwide, okay? Don't take this lightly. These people, they have the power, the money, the reach. They want to influence every single person on the face of the earth. And they have the reach and the power to do that. These are not, fairy tales, alright? The way these people see it is, the only thing standing between us governing these people is religion. And really, the only religion which stands any kind of a chance is Islam. Because the Muslims have the Quran. Okay, the Muslims have the Quran. And we need to combat this. And the way that they combat it is by trying to control people's desires. And now we live in a time of such fahsha, such indecency, that homosexuality used to be diagnosed as a mental illness. From the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It was confronted by certain groups, and now it has been removed as a mental disorder. It's been removed as a mental disorder. There's so much strength and power and lobbying by these groups that it used to be classified as a mental disorder. They've changed it now. It's not a mental disorder. We're born like this. It's normal to be like this. You can't vilify us, nor tell us to try and deal with it. Okay? So, I'm going to just kind of wrap up there. And I don't want to, depress people. The situation is very depressing. But fawahish is out there. It's attacking us, our cause, our children. Alright? And every single film we watch, every music we listen to, there is something in there to change your mentality. People don't write something for no reason. They write something because they have something to say. They want you to listen to that. They want you to believe what they believe. Filter what your children listen to. Get them to love the Quran. Get them to love the Sunnah. And don't let them be affected by these kind of things. Let them love coming to the masjid. Let them love meeting the brothers. And let them, give them good homes, good families. Protect them. Because Nietzsche, who was a philosopher, and he was, he had some strange ideas. But what he also said was, we replicate ourselves. And it's a very scary thought. Certain things that we do, which we know we probably shouldn't be doing, don't be surprised if our children end up doing the same thing. And astaghfirullah, there are many people that get into the habit every day, go home, watch a movie, watch some kind of film, watch TV. Don't be surprised if your children end up just doing the same thing, because they learn from your parents. You listen to certain songs, certain music, they do the same thing. But subhanAllah, if your child every day sees you waking up, going to Fajr, don't be surprised if he does the same thing. It becomes normal for him. You want to make his standards of normal what your standards are. But for him to do that, you have to change your standards. It will never ever. Don't be surprised if our children turn out corrupt if we're not putting in the effort ourselves. And this is a big reminder for myself as well. Forgive me if I've said anything wrong or inappropriate, but these things needed to be said. People need to be aware of these things, and may Allah help us to inculcate in our children and in ourselves haya, true haya, where we are fearful of the laws of Allah, and we do not approach them, we do not come close to them. And we ask Allah to forgive us for any sins that we have done or are doing, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to provide us with halal outlets and alternative halal outlets so that we don't fall on our desires and become slaves to them. Jazakumullah khairan, subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.